Well, it's a new episode finally after a very long time. And today I have a very special guest who is a fan of the show, actually, and who is going to tell us today, just talk about just different things about her family issues and divorce and depression and all of that. So it's going to be a great episode today. So, how are you today, Erin?
I'm good. Yep. I'm
Well,
excited,
well,
but nervous.
yeah. Well, this is gonna be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to hear. So, yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of go ahead and just kind of talk about your the story about it all. Just give us the general overview, the story. So,
Okay, yeah. I mean, definitely the whole story is hard to condense it all. But basically, um my dad had an affair and divorced my mom. And so the divorce finalized when I was around 15, and my brother Clayton, and then my youngest brother Charles was about. So yeah, it was definitely something that us would have ever thought that it would happen, and our friends and like just everybody that knew us was like, "Wait, what?" um, but
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely been hard not having, and there's definitely been a lot of tearful nights and lots of just prayers of like, "Why God? Like, why us?" Like, especially because
Right.
there wasn't like a sign of it coming. It was like just very sudden. Um, but obviously, through everything, I've definitely seen God's hand at work, um, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen miracles happen in my just everything um, that we've been through. Um, Definitely a story that I always tell when I share my testimony. With our church, we did a Bible study like shortly before my parents got divorced, called "Behold Your God: Rethinking God Biblically" by John Snyder, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good study. I highly recommend it. But that study, it was really good. It showed me more of like who God is and what He's done for me, and
Right.
that definitely gave me more of a solid like faith. And so when like the divorce came and shook like everything I've ever known, like I had solid, um, knowing that God's there and He's sovereign and who He
Mhm.
is, and that nothing's too big for Him. um, so yeah, I
Right.
like I don't know where I'd be spiritually if we hadn't done that study with our church. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was just definitely a God thing. I knew that I would need that, those truths for
Right.
when hardship came. Because it's definitely, I mean, for me, I'm like, I don't know how I made it through everything. Like, other than, it
Right.
wasn't me, it was all God and God using, resources and people and all of that. But scary to think of where I could easily have ended up, if I didn't have that strong foundation. Say hardship either pushes you towards God or, you walk away. And so, like, that's really the only two options if you're not going away from Him. And so I'm just so thankful
Mm-hmm.
that, my situation. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the basic.
Yeah. Well, that's it's pretty incredible when it kind of works in a way where you didn't expect it to happen, or it just works in a way that only God can do it. And it's just like
Hmm.
when you look back, it's kind of like, oh wow, that's like amazing. So yeah, just kind of going from there. So we kind of already talked about the divorce. So what was and also just talking about healing from it, because for some people healing from it can just take forever, and some people it can
Hmm.
kind of do it on their own timeline. So what? So what's like kind of like your take on that, and like and relying on God during that whole time. So,
Yeah. I think that healing is definitely a vital part of going through, divorce or any hardship. That, there's people that would try to, just not think about it or just like suppress their feelings and just kind of try and move on. And I would say that's definitely like never a good thing. And you need to be able to address it. And like, even though it's hard, you need to be able to, handle it and like allow yourself to heal, um, and put the work into healing because it does take a lot of work. It doesn't just like happen. Um, so
right.
for me, yeah, healing is a very slow process. But
Mm-hmm.
in some been somewhat fast. I don't know. I've seen a lot of like change because of it. Like I do see, improvement in, but
Right.
there's healing that I have to do. It's not like, oh, I just want to be healed. Like, okay, like move on. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that easy. I definitely believe that God has to be the one like working and like be helping you through the healing process because there's not really a way to just like know how to heal other than like
Mm-hmm.
looking to Christ. And um, I have a counselor that she's super as well because like she patterns and the way people think, and she's very helpful with like, okay, this isn't your fault, or like like move past this. And so that's been really good. um
Mm-hmm.
Say too, I mean, obviously God does use people as well. You can't just
Right.
be like, oh, God will just pray. Like, no, you do have to
Right.
put effort into it. But definitely, like for me, I would say the person who played probably the in my healing is my now former coworker, Isaac. He really just kind of
Mm-hmm.
played the role in my life, and he still does. He really just kind of like
Right.
adopted me and just kind of took me in, I guess. And um, just thinking about it like the other day, it's crazy. Like he treats me like more like a daughter, like should be treated than like my own father ever did. It's like
Mm-hmm.
hard, but at the same time, I'm like, I've never like felt like what it's like to be treated like a daughter should be treated. And so having that from him is just, it's amazing. It's crazy. It's like, I don't even know. There's just so much that it's definitely that. And to have him to talk, and, like I need advice, like, or whatever, like I can just go to him with things and get advice. And, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's definitely nice to have somebody caring about me like in a fatherly way.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I'm just grateful for Isaac and for that role that he plays in my life and how he's helped me to heal.
Yeah, it's crazy when you actually think about it. It's that God, he uses other broken people to help other broken people heal, even though
Hmm.
they're also
For sure.
broken too. So it's crazy how that works. And then one thing I'll also say is when I was trying to help you, at least a little bit, try to help you some with what you were going through, even though I didn't know everything that was going on, obviously. And then I just remember at points like I'll just get frustrated because whatever I was saying or whatever music songs I tried to give you that minister to me or something else, it just didn't work. And then I just kind of get frustrated at myself. But then it was a lesson from God for me also to just realizing lessons that you learn or things that minister to you might not always work for other people, even though
For sure.
it ministered to you. So I was like, yeah, that's tough. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was something um, that I also needed to learn. Just learning from someone else who just went through a different hardship and all that.
Right.
Because to be honest, my family is that I got parents who have been married for over 20 this now over 26 years now, and then I got grandparents
Wow.
that have been married over 50 years. And then and so
Mm.
it's like it's always kind of always kind of weird just hearing other people's stories, about broken family, broken relationships, and that is, to be honest, it's like almost really hard to hear because it just sounds awful. Like that would just be something like me
Yeah.
personally. I don't want to go through because you know what, no one else wants to go
No.
through it, neither. So and then also just just going to public school and just hearing some other kids talking about how their parents got broken up and all of that, but also how too like they just kind of play it off, like almost in the kind of way like it doesn't really mean much to them, is or they're just not doing anything to heal from it because obviously they don't know Jesus, so they don't have anybody to turn to. But
Right.
yeah, it was just sad, because like me as a Christian being there, like what can I say, other that Jesus is going to help you even though you don't even believe in Jesus. So that was just kind of
Right.
the hard part with that. So now now the this other question is like how did like kind of life after divorce, you know, kind of turn into? Like, was it better? Did it kind of get a little bit worse, or did you have like any like concerns with it that you were like really concerned about first that ultimately like just didn't happen, or that did happen? Like, just kind of tell us what that was kind of like.
Yeah. I man, I don't know, that's hard. I think that I would say in some ways, like it's harder for sure, but like in some ways it's easier. I don't know, maybe not like necessarily easier, but better, I guess. Like I would say that it's harder, but it's better. Like because
Mm-hmm.
like obviously not having another parent in the house, it means that everybody else has work. Like you were lacking that other person who helps carry the weight. Um,
Right.
but when that other person is so hard to please and is just constantly like finding fault and isn't really like fill to fill anyway, then you know it's
Right.
better that not having that. And having to just constantly like be walking on eggshells and like be like perfect all the time. So that definitely,
Right.
relieved the pressure. Um, yeah. And then as far as concerns, I don't know that I had any concerns thinking of like, oh, my parents are gonna get divorced. Like, I don't know the concerns. But as far as after divorce, that there's concern with my youngest brother who is 7, going and obviously our dad has visitation rights with him still, and not knowing what they're doing and knowing that my dad is doing everything he can to
Mm-hmm.
make us upset and just to be ridiculous. So like obviously like anything that like
Mm-hmm.
my dad knows like what we would do and not that of is like what he does with Charles. Um, and so that's frustrating and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that we can't control and you have to just be
Right.
like whatever, like okay. But that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and
It's
of
it's like
course,
it's like
sorry, go
almost
ahead.
like it's like yeah, because I have another friend and her father was an abuser and all that, and like how the father still has some parental rights to some of the kids, get to see
Yeah.
some of her younger siblings and all that, and just tells me like how often she gets worried, when they go over
Mhm.
there, what the father's going to do to them, even though he's already uh abused her and all of that. So it's like it's kind of frightening, like what you said, like you don't know what your dad's going to be doing to
Right.
Charles or something like that. But that's, you can only control what you control, and then like when you control, just make sure that when you have them, you raise them right.
Right.
So
For sure. Which is of course a lot of
So,
like, okay, this is the time we have with him. Like we want to make the most of it and like be good examples and build that relationship. But yeah.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I
so
think
this is you go.
sorry, I had one more on that as far as
Okay.
concerns. Um obviously, divorce is like a concern that I for other people even. Um and
Mhm.
having friends like get married and stuff, I'm always like a great person, but it's like my dad seemed like a great person too before they got married. Like, you never know
Right.
what's going and I think that I would say that divorce is actually probably harder on the children because the children go
Right.
through various stages of grief at various times in their life. Like for
Mhm.
me, 15-year-old me, grief of like somebody to play with me and just like, the fun dad, like, but then as I got older, like grieved like the thought of just not having a dad for like all the big events in life, like graduation and like
Mhm.
getting married, and like I won't have that support and that father to
Mhm.
lean on, and that still is
Yeah.
something that's really hard about, but it's definitely different. Like 15-year-old me wasn't really processing that. It was just like, oh, it's sad I don't have a dad like to play with and like take me out and like do fun.
Right.
um
Right.
yeah, so
Mhm. Y- Yeah, so like just like with the different stages of grief, like I also like know you also went through some stages of depression and all that just
mhm.
kind of just over with it. So like what so like how did you deal with it, and like what maybe some advice like you can give to some other people who maybe are in the same type of category as you are, with family brokenness and divorce and all that. So
Mhm.
what could be like something you would say or give?
Yeah. I guess, do you want me to like talk a little bit and then kind of give advice maybe?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Go for it.
okay. um, I would say, let's see. Um, yeah, back in February of this year is when I kind of first really experienced depression. Um, and for me, that I've been depressed, like I know kind of what's like leading into depression. So for me, it always starts with like apathy. You don't really care about anything. You're
Mhm.
or like you just become apathetic towards life in general. And that usually for me is what then like just into um and then that's obviously a bad place to be, because when you're already apathetic and then you become depressed, like for me, like I because I was apathetic, I didn't really care that I was depressed, but I did care because obviously I didn't really want to be
Mhm.
depressed, but then apathy, and so it's like, well, whatever, like just deal with it. Like very obviously like a confusing mix of feelings. But
Mhm.
then time of being depressed was probably, I don't know, I was probably depressed for 2 3 weeks, something like that. And then I kind of got better, and then in April, and that pretty much through like all of May, like for a long time I was depressed again. Time I would say
Mhm.
it was even worse than like the first time, which I kind of would have thought it would be the other
Mhm.
way, but you know.
Right.
So definitely
Mhm.
like the second time of being depressed, the more recent time, um, I didn't feel like eating, didn't really want to do anything other than like maybe friends, like closer friends. I was kind of just numbed, even just like listening to like music and like Christian like songs. Like it didn't really for me. It was actually kind of scary to me, like because music,
Right.
and when music's not treating you, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like I just being depressed, I'm not even myself. Like I actually took a personality test depressed, and I was like an introvert, like totally different person. Because normal me is like extrovert,
Right.
that like depressed me. I was like, this is a different person. It was crazy. But
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, so I just something that you can't really describe. But I found a couple of quotes from like kind of help describe how I'm feeling, and that's I like sending things like that to people because they don't really understand my situation. So then some quote or some um
Mhm.
to understand that. So I don't know who this quote is by. It's just anonymous. But they said having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. Fear of failure, but no urge. It's wanting friends but hating socializing. Be alone but not wanting to be lonely. It's caring about everything then caring about nothing. Once then feeling paralyzingly numb. And I definitely related to that. Just such a mix of feelings.
Whoa.
And it's a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Um
that's
but
painful
then
stuff right there.
right? Yeah. But then also because I was also feeling going through heartbreak at the same time as being depressed, then on top of the feelings of depression, I had the feelings of heartache, which there's another
Mhm.
quote, the Mind's Journal, whatever that is, I don't know. But
The mind
it
journal.
says, yeah, the Mind, totally trustworthy. No, I don't know. But says when your throat starts to burn and your heartbeat speeds up, when your stomach tightens and your lungs close up, when your tears rush to your eyes faster than you ever dreamed possible, that's the worst pain you will ever feel. That's your heart breaking. So yeah, that's
Mm.
also a quote that I like to share with friends and be like, look, people, like, not felt this, like, I kind of, it's kind of bad because I've started to like not care as much about people's like smaller problems. I'm like, you're complaining about that? Like, no. But try to still like be compassionate and stuff, but I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, so I those two quotes I really like, and they both really describe how I felt. Um yeah, so as far as like my depression, I don't really know what exactly caused it. Like even now I'm like I have no idea really why I was depressed, but um like fears, doubts, just questions like coming
Right.
from a lot of it was just lies from Satan that just sounded so right. Like I kind of, but I also like you're depressed, but like you don't really know how to fight them. Like, um, it's
Right.
just a very like weak moment, where you really can't like fend for yourself. Like that's why I need like friends to be like help me fight it and be like we will for you. Like if you're like basically like I'm like wounded on the ground, even though it's like we're in a battle, so like as Christians, so like
Mhm.
then like you have a wounded soldier and it's like then the other soldiers have to help them to can't fight, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, and I think a lot of it just came down to questioning my self-worth, and I told my counselor, I was talking to her about it, and she said yeah, that um girls tend to get their like identity and their self-worth, and so obviously losing that on the water.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so I guess
I can definitely see that because going back to my friend who's abused, she questions her self-worth all the time. And I
mhm.
feel like all the time I need to make sure I tell something to her to make sure she feels like she's worth that she feels like she has worth. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, nothing whatever I say, she'll always doubt herself at some point. It's like I can't, nobody can't control it. So you just have to pray. Like that's the only thing you can really do, Like, and to me, sometimes that's just really hard for me because I just want to fix it so bad. Like I want
Yes.
them to make sure they don't
For
they
sure.
don't feel the hurt or something like that, and it's kind of hard for me, especially when I can't be there and they're or something like that. So it's like
Right.
it's just hard for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I would say too, like for somebody who's in like the situation of trying to help the person who's depressed, been depressed, is like even though like the person
You might try and
say things to
feel valued and
be like,
these
these
are
are
lies
lies
from
from
Satan.
Satan, like this isn't really true. Like, and being in that depressed state, they probably will, argue it and be like, well, this is what, like what they're gonna do. At least this is what I did is like people would tell me stuff and I would just throw back like whatever Satan was.
But like,
It sounds like I'm just arguing with them, but it really
right.
does affect me, like what they say, even if it seems like that it's not
helping
helping.
it is.
Keep
Hmm.
saying, encouraging things,
And
like they're not listening.
they are, most likely.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and then let's see, you were asked to give advice on overcoming depression, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, you probably maybe will have some stages when it's just worse than others, but like,
Hmm.
what you found like the most helpful thing, just kind of overcome that because I think at some point some people will be get to overcome it, but some will just it'll just take a really long time just to be able to overcome it,
Right.
overcome with it.
For
It's just like kind of help get the process going and maybe even help them progress further, and trying to overcome it. Like,
right.
what's your best advice that that you can give them?
Oh boy. Um, I would say
For
for
someone
someone
going
going through depression, definitely a lot of prayer
prayer and
and being in the, because even
Hmm.
like even when you're kind of like self-coaching and like looking
looking
at
at
scripture
scripture
and being like, I know this isn't a true
true
thing
thing.
that Saint believe, like you can look at scripture and be like, well, this is what scripture says, but you can still not feel it, still
Still
look
look
at
at scripture
scripture, still pray,
because
because
eventually,
Hmm.
at least for me, I would be like numb to everything, nothing's like phasing me, and then all of a sudden I'd just be in tears of like, God, I know this is true what you're telling me. And
Hmm.
but you're not ever going to get there if you're not hearing is true and being in prayer and in
Hmm.
the word. um but then something that I learned that I try to put in practice like before, like when I'm not depressed, is something that I learned when I was at Summit Ministries at their conference in Georgia.
Right.
Is because they talked about depression and I asked the speaker like how to overcome depression, um like when the things that they had talked about, like listening to music and this other stuff doesn't help,
um,
and
that
basically keep from becoming depressed. And he said that you
like
before you become
Hmm.
that into that depressed state, focusing on God and focusing on who He
are
and
and
about fighting it and not just like wait to be like, oh wait, like I need to fight this, and by that point it's too late because Satan's already come in and taken over.
Right.
So that's
Right.
been very helpful, as being proactive.
Hmm. Right. Like I can definitely get that a whole lot for me. Just even though I'm not generally in have depression or anything like that, but just how faith works. It's like when I'm proactive in my faith, like I feel more confident in
For
who God
sure.
is and what He's doing in my life. But then when I'm not proactive in my faith, I can be skeptical about all the things going on in the world and
Yep.
just get so mad, what's going on because I just want to fix it, and too bad it's unfixable
Right.
until Jesus comes
You
back.
just have to sit and
But
watch the world fall apart.
I know, I know. So it's just kind of hard for me for that. But yeah, like at summer camp this year, it was like kind of it was like on the beach in Long Beach, here in Washington, And it was like the nicest thing because like whenever I'm at the beach or really any beach in general that's sandy, sorry, no rocky beaches, don't do this to me, but but is that it always like brings me peace, like it feels like a piece of heaven for me, just being there, and feeling just really feel close to God when I'm at that. It's not only just being at the beach, it's just being at summer camp. It's just amazing. But yeah, that's what I kind of get from it. Even though I'm not depressed, I can definitely see what you're talking about there. Like I know that's true. You know.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So like now in all of this, depression, divorce, and all that, like how did like God use this to draw you closer to Him and like build you up, because it's the build people up podcast, but instead of people, it's God building you up. So we're just gonna go with that for today. So yeah,
Okay.
so so how did He like build build you up in that? So
Yeah, definitely having close friends around
Was very helpful in
you know, and having people there to validate my identity in Christ when I was, believing
saying
certain
lies
lies
and
and
doubting
doubting my
myself.
self-worth, and having people be like, "You're amazing." Like, this is what God's word says. Like, is this really true? And I'm like, "No, it's not true." So,
right.
definitely having that was very helpful. Um, but I would say that I definitely grew a
A
lot
lot spiritually.
or so of like like into divorce, like going through it, but then also like afterwards just adjusting to like a single parent house,
New responsibility.
responsibilities.
I
I
was
was
kind
kind
of
of
like
like pushed into adulthood, sooner than normal. um
Right.
but
it
it
was
was
a
a
good
good
grew a lot and learned a lot.
You're
But
growing up now.
but
but I think that this year I've grown like so much, and it's only like
almost
almost
September.
September. Like this year's, little over half over,
hmm
but like I've just grown so much. And if we
Even
even
more than I did that first year.
like I've grown in different ways this year. I've definitely grown spiritually this year, but even this year I've grown emotionally. I've grown just like mentally, even kind of just being like a stronger person. Um
hmm
and I think that
In
in
many ways, like
this matured a lot more this year than like at any other time in my life, because for whatever reason this
year
year
was just
and I'm like doing hard
hard things
things
and
um
um
Two
constantly
hard things, right?
right and constantly
constantly
having to keep going, because like sometimes that's all you can do is just like the next step and the next thing, and like get out
of
of
that.
that. Like is things take so much work, and like there's days where it's just like I'm depressed, I still have to go to work. Like I can't just call out of work like, hey, I would have
Missed
missed
out
out
on
on
like
like
months
months
of
of work. Like no, you can't just do that. So you have to just like keep going and rely on God's strength for that. Um,
hmm
but yeah, it was very interesting too, because I've definitely had to put into practice
the things that we've been trying to teach
my
my
youngest brother, which is like self government, being able to govern yourself. I was like, hey, to teach this. I didn't want you to necessarily like make me practice this. But even like not even joking, there have been plenty of days where it's just basically me coaching myself and giving myself commands. Like I would literally sometimes just talk to myself out loud and be like, "Okay, Erin, there's things to do. Get up, like we're gonna go clean your room." Like, and I talk to myself in the plural too, which is weird. I don't know. Don't ask. But like it's just
telling
telling
yourself
yourself
to
to
keep
keep
going
going
and
and just do the next thing, and just like don't let
yourself
yourself like sit down tired. Like you
just
have to just
like
keep
going.
going, and it's crazy, and I don't know how I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like even for me, the hardest thing for me is to wake up in the mornings. and and it's just hard because without my implants, I can't hear an alarm or something like that. So
Right.
somehow, some way, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get myself up, and then it's just hard. We're
Hmm.
trying different
For
things
sure.
and all that. But if I have like a motivation reason why to get up, I can get up. But when I have
Right.
no motivation at all, I'm just in bed, just going off in sleep. Just not worried about my responsibilities for the day or something like that. So yeah, it's just. I mean, we all have things that we need to push ourselves. You know, what things going on in our lives, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of self responsibility. So, and
Hmm.
it's like that's what like my parents preach all the time: responsibility. You know, and just
Yeah.
yeah, and now it's like me like creeping up to 18, and I'm like, oh great, now here comes adulthood.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I'm
Yeah, it
still
is. It
technically a
does. It
teen.
kind of hits you.
Yeah, it just kind of hits me, and I'm like thinking, but I'm still kind of a teenager because it's still 18, and I still got 19, so I'm still in the teen years. But
Yeah.
I'm adulting legally, so it's like that's a whole nother ball game. So yeah,
Yep. Yep.
so yeah,
But then you'll just be
it's
like,
It'll be like, wake up, you have things to do, chop chop, and you'll be like, wait, what?
wait,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
and it'd be like my mom would be like waking me up, like, yo, you need to walk the dog before you go to work, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, like, and I haven't even woken up, so it's like, oh, Jonathan, you need to do better. You need to wake up at 8 or something like that. Then you can have the walk dog and already have
mhm.
something done and not have to feel rushed and go to work and not have anything done.
Yep.
So so yeah,
Yep.
that's kind of like one of the things that I need to work on before I go to college to make sure I can get up myself
Yeah.
before
Just ask
I
your
can do
roommates to
that.
wake you up.
Right. So yeah. All right. So now we're kind of gonna end it on this note. But just now we know how God used to. How did your the divorce and your depression and all that kind of help other people, in other ways? I remember when you posted on the community, like you had like a friend, who was about to get married, and like you sent him uh the text, talking about how divorce is hard and that you're praying for him, that
Mhm.
for their marriage and all of that. Like, and apparently, like he didn't
Yeah.
know, and that's like kind of one of his things he was thinking about. And I don't know, something about when I read that, this kind of stuck out to me. I don't know what it is, but it was like, oh man, that's like crazy cool, like how like God works in that particular way, because the divorce rate in America it is pretty high. It's 50%. That's way too high,
Mhm.
because then that's like half of the households in America have children who don't have a mom or a dad, to help them grow up and
right,
mature. So then that means they have to rely on other people. And some people they just don't have people, and some people they do. So yeah,
Right.
so so maybe I just spoiled what you're gonna say. Maybe I did, maybe I
No.
didn't. But so yeah, so how did God use this and use you to help other people with your story?
Yeah. Well, for one,
that being on the podcast,
sharing
sharing
my story with like the world. Hopefully encouraging them. I don't know. um. So yeah, I
Right.
don't know. That's pretty crazy.
but
Like being able to help other friends who are struggling, even if I haven't like
necessarily been through what they've been through,
I've been through so much that I feel like I can relate to almost anything. I mean, even if I've not experienced it, I have
felt their feelings
and emotion. Like I'm like I've been in that situation, even if my circumstances are different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
I've been able to
people, and I know what's like been helpful for me, and sometimes it's helpful for other people, sometimes it's not. But I think a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
it is, and I definitely, when if I am going to try and
be, helping somebody or offering them advice,
I always,
a verse or like, because sometimes
people are just like, okay, the Bible doesn't just solve everything, like, so I don't want that. Like, it's just
Right.
it's a very rocky ground to navigate of what people want and what they need. Like,
do they even need advice? Do they just need somebody
you
to
listen to them. So I definitely go into it with prayer
Mm-hmm.
and like, okay, do I really feel like God wants
to send this
to this person, or like do this
for them?
or do I just
Right. Right. And to be honest, I think a lot of us here, including me, and and I think a lot of people in some ways, we really neglect prayer in our
Mhm.
lives. I know I do, and I still need to work on it. But it can be so powerful, you know,
for
when
sure?
God answers your prayer. But and I mean, like even though when He does it, you still know it's going to be okay. You know, so it may not always happen the way we want it to, but when it's happened, it's like amazing because it's like it's like it feels like God's even more real, even though He's not physically here. It's like he knows what you're going through, and He is and intervening when He wants to intervene. So I find that pretty amazing because one time we were in New Orleans, helping out with a church plant, and one of the days we're gonna have like this big event and do an outreach to some of the suburbs in New Orleans, and it was supposed to rain like really hard that day, and we were kind of praying all during the week that we were there, like Lord, please either make the rain go away or make sure that the rain comes when we're done. You know, it doesn't matter as long as it rains
Mhm.
when we're done or just not at all. And lo and behold, the weather changed in a way where it rained when we were just about done. So it's like we got to do everything
Wow.
that we wanted to do, but it didn't rain
That's
until we were done.
awesome.
It was, and that's me. That's me. Like I don't know how old I was. Maybe like 11 or 12. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's like me like just being that kid and then just realizing, holy cow, like God is God is real, and
Yeah.
he's here, even and he knows when we need it most. So I just, to be honest, like
Yeah.
I need to share that more, but it was like just something like amazing, you know, that happened. And of course, there's also plenty of other examples I can use of answer prayer or anything like that. But yeah, it's just crazy how God uses people, even though we don't we don't know it's God using us. You, you know, so.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So So you got anything else to say before we hit the stop and record button before we go? And you got any last words, any last comments, anything before?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Um. I mean, I have another little story that I could share
Okay,
if you want.
share it.
um. Let's see.
see,
I could. Okay, so I
could
could
share
share the hardest part of going through divorce, or I could share a story of
something
something
that helps me.
through divorce.
Um, let's do the story. I like stories. Stories are the best. So.
So
When so the night that she told me,
there,
um,
of course, we were both
in tears,
and
um,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't really know what to do.
we're like,
Who should she?
she like
She needed advice, obviously. So, anyways, I told her that she
Right.
should call her good. And so she did, and it was like 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and it was pretty late. Still, like, she came over, and took her 15 minutes, but so by the time like
Right.
she got here, we were kind of more composed, but like she could tell that we had been crying. Um, so she just like came in, and I just started crying again, and so
Mm-hmm.
she just kind of just hugged me and let me
me just cry on her shoulder.
I kind of just got the feeling that she was probably praying for me. I haven't asked her for sure, but I just had that feeling because
She
she
just
just
wasn't
wasn't
saying
saying
anything.
anything, anything. And then
After
after a little
Mm-hmm.
while, just said like very
quietly,
quietly,
she was just like, "It's gonna be
okay. Is normally something that people would say. You don't ever say that to somebody who's hurting, like, because that's not helpful. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, of course,
gonna be okay." Like,
it's something that thanks, like, whatever. But
but her those words,
to tell me because
like
when
she said that,
like when she said it's gonna be okay, as if like I almost just felt as if God was being like, it's gonna be okay no matter what happens, like you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very
Right.
powerful for me, even though it's as if God was like
they're
there
comforting me and saying you'll be okay,
no
no
matter what happens. So that was
matter.
definitely
Very
important.
something I'll never forget.
Oh man. You know how many times I go to rant to my mom and I just kind of spill whatever I'm frustrated with or something like that with her. And then at the end, she just said it's gonna be okay, Jonathan. You know, God's in control. And it's like that's what I need
That's
every
not
time. It's just it's gonna be okay. No matter what
yeah.
happens. Even though I may be frustrated about what's going on in my life, is knowing that it's going to be okay and it's all going to work out. And then a little bit later, I just kind of say to myself, why was I so frustrated over that? Like, come on, Jonathan, you know better. But you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, like I totally sympathize with that. Just saying, that everything is going to be okay. You know, uh, despite the trials and just the heartbreak that we all go through in life. Is it's like good and then bad, good, bad, whatever. That's
Hmm.
what that's what just life is, and it's so comforting, that in the end everything's gonna be okay because Jesus wins. I'm sorry, that's a spoiler for all the people, but Jesus wins, so we know that everything's gonna be okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, so let me pray before we go, and
Okay.
we'll get this out to the people. All right.
Cool. All right.
Dear God, dear God, thank you for this day. Just thankful for the time that we've been able to be together and listen to Erin's story. Just about divorce, heartbreak, and depression, Lord, and how you use that to help her and overcome that, and use that to help other people. And I just pray, Lord, just for the people on here who are listening and maybe some people who needed it, Lord. And I just pray, Lord, that you will just use this to help them, Lord, grow closer to you and become more like you. And I just pray, Lord, that we will take comfort that everything will be okay. No matter the struggles and no matter the heartbreak that we go through, that in the end, everything will be okay. And we love you and we thank you. Yeah, that we will honor and glorify you in everything that we think and say and do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you,
Hmm.
Erin, for coming on and
Yeah.
doing this interview. It was a lot of fun, and I certainly believe that some
Yeah.
people are gonna take something from this. So thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thanks.